In the early to mid-1960s, the Bathurst Enduro had been dominated by hot four-cylinder cars like Ford's GT500 Cortina and BMC's amazing Mini Cooper S. That all came to an end in 1967 though, with the arrival of this car, the sensational XR GT Falcon. It was the brainchild of then Ford boss Bill Burke, who took what was originally designed as a high-speed police pursuit car and turned it into what would become the granddaddy of all Australian muscle cars. The XR GT Falcon was equipped with what Ford called its Mustang-bred 4.7 litre or 289 cubic inch V8, equipped with Australia's first four-barrel carburettor. The GT also had a trick interior trim, 4-speed gearbox and sport suspension tuned around radial tyres, which in 1967 was considered cutting-edge technology. The 1967 race was won by an XR GT driven by Harry Firth and Fred Gibson, throwing down the gauntlet to arch-rival Holden and laying the foundation for the Ford versus Holden Bathurst rivalry, which thrives today.
They called him the Fox, and it was a fitting description. The cunning way in which Harry Firth competed as either a driver, car preparer or team manager has left an indelible mark in Bathurst history. Firth's credits include 4 outright wins in the Great Race, 2 of those during its formative years, at Phillip Island in 1961 and 62. When the race moved to Mount Panorama in 1963, Firth's car sorting skills saw the Ford Cortina dominate the race in the mid-1960s. He then went on to claim his 4th Bathurst win in 1967, driving the new Falcon GT with Fred Gibson. Firth retired from race driving in 1968 and switched from Ford to front the new Holden dealer team. His driving and engineering expertise played a key role in the development of legendary Bathurst-winning Holdens, including the GTS Monaro 350, GTR XU1 Tirana, L34 Tirana, and the awesome Tirana A9X.
Ford's victory in the 1967 Bathurst Enduro with its new XR Falcon GT provoked a fast and effective response from arch-rival Holden. As a subsidiary of American giant General Motors, Holden used all of its considerable resources to build its Falcon GT beater, the HK GTS 327 Monaro. The new Holden featured a beautifully styled and surprisingly rigid two-door body shell and was powered by Chevrolet's 5.3 litre or 327 cubic inch V8 imported direct from the United States. The 1968 Bathurst 500 was a hell of a contest. The Monaro was pitched against Ford's new, more powerful XT Falcon GT, and the flying Fords and Holdens set a blistering pace. Ultimately, Ford's GT was crushed under the weight of the General's new weapon, the GTS 327 Monaros claiming the top 4 positions in the race. It was this privately entered Monaro, driven by Bruce McPhee and Barry Mulholland, that won the 1968 event. And a year later, Colin Bond and Tony Roberts teamed up to win the 1969 race in an even more powerful 5.7 litre version.
One of the biggest changes in 40 years of the Great Race has been the pit stops. Back in the early 1960s, the rules demanded that cars be serviced using the factory toolkit supplied with the car. Things became more sophisticated with the introduction of hydraulic trolley jacks and special wheel braces, which allowed faster changes and shorter stops. Refuelling, though, was fraught with danger. For many years, large steel cans with plastic hoses attached were standard issue. As a result, there were numerous spills at a time when pit crews wore no flame-proof clothing. It was a miracle that there wasn't a serious pit fire. It was also remarkable that right up until the mid-1970s, there was no physical barrier between the track and the pits, exposing crew members to even greater potential dangers.
R9 is still ahead, but just when the Ford camp's becoming confident, real trouble strikes the Gagan machine. The Falcon's disc brakes burn out. Replacement takes 16 minutes. A quarter of an hour later, it's the leader, Barry Seaton, in with a suspected blown head gasket. Time is running out, and every second vital. A radiator refill, some rapid cooling, and the car is sent back onto the track.
Today, you wouldn't recognise the Bathurst pit lane, with its corporate suites, separate garages, large concrete protective wall, wide entry and service lanes and strictly controlled speed limits. Today's cars are also equipped with their own onboard air jack systems, the single nut wheels are changed with high pressure air guns, and refuelling is done with sophisticated fully sealed aircraft systems by personnel dressed in helmets and full fireproof gear. Today, pit stops are measured down to hundredths of seconds. In the old days, a good stop could be measured in minutes.
Is not going as well as he'd like to and shoots into the pit area, reporting loss of power. Their Armstrong bogey looms up. He went out again for 2 laps while pit crew prepared to clean his carburetor and get new plugs. That second stop was 7.5 minutes, a total of 10, or 3 laps drag when he flew out again.
After 2.5 hours, Leo Gagan is to take over from brother Pete, but he's late, and our camera on Forest Elbow shows why. His rear tyre is wrecked from a blowout in the cutting. The pit crew stand by with tyres, unaware of the trouble. Pete had timed his stop 1 lap too late, but despite the flat, his lap time loss is only 30 seconds. This is where every second counts. A minute lost will take an hour to make up. Leo takes over as his crew, with a little help from Big Brother, change both offside wheels.
Hand me a tire. Have you got a tire? You got a chamois?
Out again after 4 minutes, but now Digby Cook is leader.
By 1970, the Bathurst-inspired muscle car war was really hotting up. The big three, Ford, Holden and Chrysler, started to exploit the race rules, which demanded that a minimum number of road cars had to be manufactured and made available for public sale to qualify for the 500. Ford produced a limited edition high-performance Bathurst version of its GT Falcon called the GT-HO. Holden swapped the brute power of its V8 Monaro for its smaller, lighter and more nimble 6-cylinder Tirana, while Chrysler's development program, with its 6-cylinder Hemi Pacer, was serving as a useful testbed for the all-new Charger Coupe it had on the drawing boards.
You know, the success of the first GT Falcon really lit the wick for the Ford versus Holden muscle car war. It was almost like two opponents in a prize fight, landing harder and harder punches. Holden responded to the first GT with the GTS 327 Monaro, and then Ford fought back with these cars, the fabulous XW GT-HO Falcons with the distinctive Subaru decal on the front guards. You know, HO was originally supposed to stand for high output, but just before the car's release, Ford changed it to handling options to try and calm down a pretty nervous insurance industry. This is the first of Ford's Aussie supercars, an out-and-out race special made to beat the best at Bathurst, and unbelievably, it was also available to the man on the street. Phase 1 of the GT-HO program introduced the very powerful 5.8-litre Windsor V8 engine. The car also carried a long-range fuel tank and had improvements to its braking and handling. 12 months later though, Ford released Phase 2 of the XW GT-HO. It was equipped with an even more powerful Cleveland V8 engine, and this is the actual car that Alan Moffat drove to victory in 1970.
He's a very happy man.
Moffat is a household name held in the same esteem as Brock and Bathurst. It seems the Moffat legend has been passed down through generations of race fans. The expat Canadian earned immediate star status when he took his first Bathurst 500 win in 1970. Driving solo for the entire race distance in Ford's formidable GT-HO Falcon. In 1971, he crushed the competition to claim back-to-back victories, and together with Pete Gahagan, won his third Bathurst crown for Ford 2 years later. Moffat, however, saved his best until last. His demoralising form finish of 1977 was his fourth and final victory on the mountain. A quartet of unforgettable wins that makes Alan Moffat deserving of his legendary status. It's been said that winning takes 10% of talent and 90% of hard work. But there's no doubt Colin Bond was blessed with a rare gift that made the hard work of winning a whole lot easier. Bond was a natural, as skilled on bitumen as he was on gravel. His success in the 1970s was prolific. 3 Australian rally titles backed by National Touring Car and Manufacturer Championship crowns with the Holden dealer team. His one and only Bathurst win came in 1969 at the wheel of a GTS 350 Monaro he shared with fellow rally ace Tony Roberts. Bond clearly had the ability to be a multiple Bathurst winner, but luck seemed elusive. In 1976, he and John Harvey were denied victory by the ailing Morris Fitzpatrick Tirana, and the following year he obeyed team orders to finish second to Alan Moffat in Ford's famous 1-2 finish. By 1972, Australian car makers were in the grip of Bathurst fever. An outright win on the first Sunday in October was attracting enormous national interest as the race was telecast live across the nation. The prestige of winning produced tangible results for the successful brand with an immediate increase in showroom traffic. The marketing men soon coined the phrase, "Win on Sunday, sell on Monday."
The field will soon be on its way in the 1972 Hardy Ferodo 500. Flag should be dropping any moment.
The 1972 Bathurst race was looking like a civil war. Holden was planning a wild V8 version of its compact Tirana. Ford was building the definitive Phase 4 version of its Falcon GTHO. And Chrysler was putting the finishing touches to its E49 Charger 6-pack, with rumours of an even hotter V8 version on the way. However, it was not to be. A politically inspired and media-driven frenzy over road safety issues killed the Bathurst supercars.
Moffat's got the capacity to make up the leeway because it doesn't look like a long stop, but it must be galling sitting there while Brock and the other front runners get further ahead. They're bringing Peter Brock in for his first pit stop. It's lap 47, and it should take about a minute and a half to change tyres and take on a full load of fuel. He's still holding first, but this is where he could lose the lead.
Let's go, Pete. Going well?
Brakes are just getting bedded in. Very nice.
We've had the clock on this one, and it looks as though Brock will be out in about 1:35. No, it's 1:36. There he goes in second slot. Shivers, driving a consistent race and holding off from making a pit stop, is in third. French is holding down fourth. Here comes Moffat. He's got the boot down, in fifth and climbing back. Gagan has pitted. Brock's back in the lead, but we've just heard that he's also been penalised a minute for a refuelling miscue. Moffat's in for his second stop. He's got to within 12 seconds of Brock. The stop will drop him back another 2 minutes. So, to be with Brock at the flag, he's going to have to drive even harder. Let's watch this stop. There's Brock, the leader, still nicely out in front, but French is closing the gap, although he's still got that one pit stop to go. And here's drama, an unscheduled stop by Moffat. Last time in, he was complaining about the Falcon's brakes, and this could be the reason for him bringing the car in so soon. Yes, it looks as though the mechanics are checking out the system. No effort to change tyres. No one's worrying about topping up the fuel tank. I'd say that this stop could develop into a lengthy one. That'll mean the end of Moffat's chances of taking the 500 from Brock. Very disappointing moment for the Ford Works driver. After his early troubles, he was consistently making up ground. This looks as though it will put paid to his chances. And look at this. The race just about run, and drama in front of the pits. Murray Carter has put his Falcon into the fence at Murray's, and he doesn't know that the bodywork is ripping into the tyre. He'll be lucky to get around the track, and he has to do that. Regulations say he can't back up. Carter's made it in. Look at that tyre, shredded to pieces, and look at that battered bodywork. Mechanics are rushing in to get him out on the track again because Carter has the capacity to finish around about 10. He's driven a sure and steady race. It must be galling to be sitting in the pits like this with mechanics tearing at the car. And they're hacking at it too. There's no time for niceties now. There's some bodywork in the road, so the mechanics are chopping it off. It's the quickest way. There's a good look at the ruined tyre. The Holden dealers team pit is making certain that Brock realises that French is in the runner-up slot, and that as long as the purple Falcon doesn't pass him, he's got the 500.
One of the greatest tragedies in Bathurst history was the infamous supercar scare of 1972, a media-driven political frenzy over road safety that killed what would have been the greatest high-performance Falcon ever made, the XA GTHO Phase 4. The supercar scare happened so late in the year that the Ford Works team were already well advanced with construction of their Bathurst entries. And this car, owned by David Bowden, is the only one of the 3 prototypes built that was actually fully prepared for racing. And as you can see, it was destined for none other than Alan Moffat to drive in the 1972 race. The Phase 4 quite clearly would have been the best handling, the safest, the fastest of all the Phase Falcons. It even had its own specially made 15 by 7 inch cast alloy wheels designed to improve the car's handling and reduce the brake temperatures which had dogged the earlier Phase Falcons. We can only wonder now what that 1972 Bathurst race would have been like had the Phase 4 made it onto the grid.
Brock and Bathurst are as synonymous as Elvis and rock and roll. Through the 1970s and 80s, it seemed the Mountain Master had a mortgage on Mount Panorama. His tally of 9 mountain wins is a record unlikely ever to be beaten. It started in 1972 when the Diamond Valley Kid stormed to a brilliant solo victory driving an XU1 Tirana. His second win came 3 years later with Brian Sampson in a Tirana L34. From 1978 to 1984, Brock was virtually unbeatable, claiming amazing 6 wins from 7 starts in a variety of Tiranas and Commodores, co-driven by Jim Richards and Larry Perkins. His final victory came in 1987, when his 3rd place became 1st following the exclusion of the Texaco Sierras. The only blot on the Mountain Master's record is that his Bathurst tally is 1 short of a perfect 10.
Giant Killer was the endearing nickname most commonly used to describe Holden's Tirana GTR XU1 in the early 1970s, and it was a most fitting description. Pitched against the awesome power of Ford's GTHO Falcons, in the eyes of the fans, the XU1 assumed the role of David against Ford's Goliath. The little Tirana with its triple carburetted 6-cylinder engine certainly struggled against the GTHOs in terms of top speed down Conrod Straight. But what they lacked there, they certainly made up for with their nimble handling and braking. These cars are also a lot more economical in terms of their use of tyres, brakes and fuel. At Bathurst in 1972, the XU1 Tirana was truly a giant killer. It went into the race as the underdog, but a combination of wet weather, the well-drilled Holden dealer team and a young gun by the name of Peter Brock produced a winning performance.
Another noticeable change to Mount Panorama over the past 40 years has been track safety. Back in the 1960s, it really was just a public road, with minimal safety fencing constructed from wooden planks bolted to solid steel posts driven into the ground. There were all kinds of hazards waiting to punish those who strayed off the racing line.
Up Mountain straight to the cutting, closed to the public. They don't see Smith take Altenham. Privilege reserved for the local livestock. He's still in there, sorting himself out, but okay. An obstacle for the others and a job for the tow wagon. Since last year, the council has done a good job widening the 2 bottom corners. You can take them both faster, but they need a new approach line. Time 12:20, and Stacey has bent his Cooper on Forest Elbow. The fang percentage for these fast-moving small fellows seems high. But remember, there were a lot of them, and the very nature of the race made them all press a little harder, some too hard. Stacey is okay, but the cars had it.
The entire track was lined with barbed wire cattle fencing, deep ditches, exposed earth banks and giant gum trees. Over the years, track safety was gradually upgraded, the most noticeable change being the addition of the chase deviation on Conrod Straight in 1987. Today, the entire circuit is encased in concrete walls, catch fencing and deep gravel traps. Yet, thankfully, the mountain's essential character has never been lost.
When people talk about the cars that were built to win at Bathurst, quite clearly there's one that stands head and shoulders above all else, and this is it, the fabulous XY GTHO Phase 3. The XY was the third and ultimately final phase of the GTHO program, and today it's unquestionably the most collectible muscle car in the country. The XY was also the first and only GTHO to feature this, the famous shaker scoop. It actually attached directly through the engine and poked through the bonnet through this hole here, and when the engine was running, the shaker scoop shook from side to side, hence the famous name. The shaker engine deserved its fearsome reputation. The Phase 3 was equipped with an immensely powerful Cleveland V8 and bulletproof drivetrain. Not surprisingly, it destroyed the competition at Bathurst in 1971, and this car was not only fastest down Conrod Straight in 1971 and 1972, but was also driven by Queenslander John French to second outright in the 1972 race.
John Goss is the only man to have won both the Australian Grand Prix and the Bathurst 1000. Even today, memories of his spectacular driving of both touring cars and open wheelers remain vivid in the minds of many fans. The Tasmanian's first Bathurst win ranks as one of the most popular in the history of the great race. Goss teamed with Kevin Bartlett in a privately entered Falcon, pitched against Holden's fast but fragile L34 Tiranas. Goss focused on reliability rather than raw speed, and the strategy paid off, winning a marathon race that concluded in diabolical conditions. Goss had to wait more than a decade for his second Bathurst success, when he was drafted into the TWR Jaguar team for the 1985 event. Goss and co-driver Armin Hana steering the big V12-powered British coupe to another popular win.
Holden's success with its six-cylinder XU1 Tiranas in the early 1970s laid the foundation for the introduction of its new, larger LH model in 1974. The hottest model in the range was called the SLR 5000 and was the first Tirana powered by a V8 engine. The SLR 5000, though, proved a difficult beast to tame. Under the stress of competition, Holden's 5-litre V8 engine was proving very fragile, and its gearbox, differential and brakes were barely strong enough to do the job. The solution to at least some of the new Tirana's woes was this car, the limited production L34. In 1974, the L34 suffered high-profile failure at Bathurst when Peter Brock retired from the race when he was many laps in the lead. After a year's development, though, Brock returned and, together with co-driver Brian Sampson, gave the L34 its first Bathurst win in 1975. The L34 recorded its second mountain win a year later, with a nail-biting victory going to this car, driven by Bob Morris and John Fitzpatrick in 1976.
Perhaps the most dramatic change in 40 years of the great race has been the continual rise in speeds and resulting tumble in lap times. In 1963, the fastest cars were taking around 3.5 minutes to complete a full lap of the old circuit. Today, the V8 supercars are a full 1 minute and 20 seconds faster each lap, despite the addition of the chase deviation on Conrod Straight. In 2002, John Bowers' provisional pole position time was 2 minutes 8.38 seconds. Not only the fastest lap ever of Mount Panorama by a touring car, but also undercutting the quickest time ever recorded on the old circuit by a Formula 5000 open-wheeled racing car.
1-2. The 1954 Hardy Broder 1000.
The annual Bathurst 1000 Enduro has played host to many memorable finishes, but 25 years on, it seems there is none more unforgettable than Ford's crushing 1-2 form finish of 1977. The stage for such a dramatic finish had been set by the dominance of the Moffat Ford dealer team Falcons of Alan Moffat and Colin Bond, who ran away with the Australian Touring Car Championship that year. They arrived at Bathurst with their Ford Falcons showing plenty of speed and reliability, and they were also armed with two great co-drivers in the form of Porsche specialists Alan Hamilton and multiple Le Mans winner Jackie X. Moffat's plan was to break the back of Holden's challenge by setting a relentless pace. The strategy worked, and by half-race distance, the two Falcons had blown the competition to pieces. The pace had been so hot, in fact, that Moffat's winning Falcon actually ran out of brake pads in the final laps. Even so, nothing could take the gloss off his masterful staging of the first and finest 1-2 finish in Bathurst history.
The mystique of Mount Panorama has played a key role in creating many of Australia's racing heroes. and there would be few more indebted to Bathurst's bittersweet fortunes than Dick Johnson. 2 decades ago, the Queenslander was just another Aussie battler with a fast Falcon and a ton of raw talent. In 1980, his infamous collision with a rock provided the catalyst for a new car in 1981. And together with co-driver John French, Johnson won his first Bathurst 1000. Dick's second Bathurst win in 1989 was a dominant performance when he teamed with John Bowell in a turbocharged Ford Sierra. The Queenslander claimed his third and final win 5 years later when Bauer crossed the line first in 1994, driving the Shell Falcon V8 supercar.
Ford's unforgettable 1-2 finish at Bathurst in 1977 stung arch rival Holden so badly that it doubled its efforts to ensure such a crushing display of superiority would belong only to Holden in future. And this is the car that did it, the awesome Tirana A9X. You know, even today, this car is arguably the toughest looking race car ever to appear at Mount Panorama. The secret to its success was to put a big engine in a small body. In this car's case, the 400 horsepower Holden 5-litre V8 in a body that seemed barely big enough to contain it all. The A9X had performance poking out all over the place. Look at this, big spoiler on the back of the car, 120-litre long-range fuel cell hanging under the back, bolt-on wheel arch flares, really big fat rubber, big open side exhausts, and of course the signature of every Tirana A9X, this rearward-facing engine scoop. This was an awesome car. The A9X did what it was designed to do. In the hands of Peter Brock and Jim Richards, it simply destroyed the competition at Bathurst, claiming back-to-back wins in 1978 and 1979.
Another huge change in 40 years has been the live national television coverage of the event. In 1963, the first Bathurst telecast consisted of just 4 cameras, which covered only the bottom section of the circuit and transmitted flickering black and white images. However, the number of cameras and the improvements in live telecast technology grew rapidly. Colour TV was introduced in 1975, and Australia's world first in-car camera technology debuted in 1979. Today's Bathurst 1000 telecast is an enormous operation, involving 10 days of setup and production time and employing around 250 personnel. And from just 4 cameras in 1963, the 10-hour telecast now boasts around 30 track cameras and 50 in-car cameras to capture every second of the action.
Paul Dumbrell joining us. We wish you well in the race, mate. Thanks for stopping by. Coming to Stephen Ellery and Paul Radisich.
Well, let's have a look on the Nintendo replay. This might tell the story. Well, he said the pedal went straight to the floor and he had nothing going on there. Straight into the tyre wall.
But here's how it all happened. A new complexion on this race.
Went wide, didn't he? Got a rear wheel out in the dirt. The back came around so fast. Just snuck into the gravel trap, and that's where he got stuck. That's going to bring a safety car out. Let's have a look at the Nintendo replay.
Again here, really nothing to it, aside from the fact that Thomas Mazira got a little too wide on the approach.
For many years, Alan Grice was considered the bad boy of touring car racing. His no-nonsense approach was to use up all it's got, and if you have to park it, so what? It was an attacking style which attracted his own legion of fans, who referred to him simply as Gricey. He thrived as the underdog, the Aussie battler, taking on the works teams and often beating them at their own game. It was fitting that he claimed his first Bathurst win in such circumstances, teaming with Graham Bailey in 1986 to dominate the race in a privately entered Commodore. His second win in 1990 was again a typically gutsy effort against the odds, only this time he was driving for the factory Holden team against many highly fancied Ford Sierras. Grice and co-driver Win Percy set a relentless pace, which ultimately ground the turbo cars into submission and produced one of Mount Panorama's most popular victories.
By 1980, Ford and Holden had both withdrawn official factory support from touring car racing. So the Falcons and Commodores that competed in that era at Bathurst were generally put together by either dealer-supported teams or privateers. One of those battlers was a service station proprietor by the name of Dick Johnson. He got together with True Blue Steel through his good mate Ross Palmer and virtually pioneered development of the brand new XD Falcon. It was powered by a 5.8-litre Cleveland V8 and proved to be a potent race car. Johnson went to Bathurst in 1980 with high hopes, but a bizarre collision with a large rock that had tumbled onto the track wrecked the car and made Johnson an instant folk hero. Buoyed by donations from around the country to keep him racing, Johnson returned to Bathurst in 1981 with this car, a brand new True Blue XD Falcon, and together with fellow Queenslander John French, they recorded a very popular victory.
He's polite and says few words. An amiable Kiwi who has earned the nickname Gentleman Jim. Those who have raced against him, though, scoff at such a title. Jim Richards is as tough, competitive and uncompromising as they come. A consummate professional who for many years was widely regarded as the best touring car driver in the world. The first 3 of his 6 Bathurst wins were with the Holden dealer team. Richards co-drove with Peter Brock, and from 1978 to 1980, they were untouchable. Richards went on to claim 2 more wins with Nissan and Mark Scaife in the early 90s before his victory for Volvo in the 1998 event for super touring cars, and his most recent victory in 2002. Today, Richards is in his mid-50s, but is showing no signs of slowing down. His passion for motorsport and his versatile skill remain as abundant as ever. Some of the biggest crashes ever captured on camera have occurred at Mount Panorama. Who could forget the fearsome sight of Tony Roberts in his GTHO Falcon disappearing backwards over Skyline and tumbling down the side of the hill in 1970? Or Bill Brown's horrific tumble along the wooden fence at McPhillamy Park in 1971. Yep, Bathurst is a wild old place, all right.
One car rolls in front of the field, all but blocking the track. Others, unable to slow, cannon into each other. 4 cars are write-offs and 15 others get a buffeting.
He wants to get a better view of real trouble. Watch the Viva 58.
Escape on Forest Elbow for the Kennedy Bond Datsun, but they're soon back in the race. At Forest Elbow, Leo Gagan and Doug Whiteford brush with spectacular results.
No.
Oh, the car's gone.
After passing the car, and it spun at the top of the mountain, coming down, just clips the wall. That is not a good place to be if anyone was travelling very, very close to him at the time. So Peter Jansen has taken over from David Parsons. Has lasted only half a lap.
Let's look at it on the replay. There's Brock. He's running wide. He's getting sideways. Dear, oh dear, he's heading toward the concrete wall from here. What has happened there? Massive lose. He's probably doing about 170 kilometres an hour there, and crunch. That is a big impact, a huge impact, as Brock loses it coming through Castrol Curve on the run up toward McPhillamy.
Coming down, there's English, the last car on screen. Uh-oh, he's got into the side of the Clearahan Mazda RX-7. Clearahan's heading out to the wall. He decides he's turning the other way. Oh, my goodness me.
Lumps of concrete flying everywhere. Knocked a big hole in the wall.
Who we caught early on our Toyota replay. This is the lusty Commodore getting out of shape, and crunch. Up she goes. Down it comes.
There's the view from Alan Grice's car. He's there, car 44. He's just stopped. He's not in damage, but there are a number of cars. Bob Morris's car is there. Bob Morris going so hard trying to get up the lead in second place.
The track is completely blocked. A replay of it for you.
Well, Christine Cole is involved. She was very early there. You can see Christine on the left. Bob Morris came along. He spun there, the car going backwards. Christine was involved first with another car. There are cars on the other side. Alan Brown. The track is completely blocked. Oh, he's gone. He's gone. Kevin Bartlett. The roll is over. Bartlett has gone. He's got Dick Johnson maybe into him. No, Dick got out of the way. But the back tyre is off. The back tyre is off Kevin Bartlett's car. He went wide. I think the tyre came off at the start. Slid into the bank, and a very slow and lazy roll across the track. A marshal is there to try and get Ken out. He's okay.
Unthinkable as it may have once been, the V8 icons of the 70s, Peter Brock and Alan Moffat, joined forces in a works Commodore in '86. This Mount Panorama partnership was touring cars' dream team, but only produced nightmares for ex-Falcon hero Alan Moffat.
Friday afternoon, Friday morning, and a Commodore got a right rear wheel into the dirt, getting my mind off the job. She dug in, turned left instantly, and I hit the wall. Pretty frightful. I thought I was going over the wall, actually. But as it slid down and came to a halt, all I realized was that I damaged the car.
Oh, no, Jimmy Richards has hit the wall.
Well, Richo, of course, stuck on slicks and no traction at all, even for a four-wheel drive Nissan.
Well, here's Crompton's chance to be the ultimate hero.
That car is not going anywhere else but the pits this afternoon. The rain is now hitting the commentary booth so hard, you can hear it.
I would expect we might see a red flag. I can see them stopping this race.
Yeah. They must stop the race.
This is it. This will be the end. The red flag will be out before we finish our next sentence, I would say.
Well, now, if that happens, what they usually do is backdate the race by a lap or so, which could well see Jimmy Richards and Mark Scaife still taking victory.
Listen to the crowd. The top of the hill. This is the kind of send-off, and I don't want to...
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I don't want to be unkind to Winfield and the Nissan team, but the punters at the top of the hill, this is the kind of send-off they wanted to see